Here's one towards the goal. That's going to be gloved by Travis Ridgen. Well, this is more like it.
This is Slangin' the Biscuit. Here's Travis Ridgen and Dave Wheeler.
Ladies and gentlemen, lads and ladies, welcome back to the Slinging the Biscuit podcast, a part of our summer, fall, and now winter interview series. Today's guest was a 180th overall pick in what is widely regarded as the greatest draft in NHL history, 2003. He also played just shy of 300 pro games between the New York Rangers, St. Louis Blues, Ottawa Senators organization, and 4 years in the Continental Hockey League, the KHL, over in Russia. He also scored a goalie goal and has a whole lot of stories. Without further ado, welcome to the show, the pride of Vancouver, BC, my home, Chris Holt.
Cheers, boys. Pleasure to be here.
Okay, I'm gonna come out swinging here, Mr. Holt. I went through your statistics on HockeyDB, and I thought, well, this must be wrong. So I went to Wikipedia, then I went to a few other sites. Can you explain to me why you go in for 2 games in the NHL, don't let in a single goal, and then never see the ice sheet again? That makes zero sense to me.
It's baffled me, Dave, for a long time. But I came in in relief both of those games. The stories go so long, but I definitely feel like over the course of my time I spent here domestically before I started going overseas and playing over there, I really do wish I got a real shot to stick. And I think my St. Louis year, that was the year. I led the AHL in all categories through like 25 games and just couldn't, for all the different reasons that we're all too familiar with. It just didn't happen for me. I didn't get the nod to get a start and to get an opportunity to really latch on.
Well, before we get into those little idiosyncratic things that you say that we all know, your save percentage was over 920. I mean, there was maybe 3 seasons that you were barely under 899 one year. Your goals against was under 240. I mean, all the things said, yeah, this guy can absolutely handle. I mean, I understand that you were behind Henrik Lundqvist. I mean, that's a tough nut to crack. I mean, that guy's not going to go down. You're behind Chris Mason in St. Louis, so I understand there's some things there. But for those teams to not go, hey, we got a gamer here, let's leverage this, see if we can get some pieces of our puzzle and trade him off somewhere else. The fact that you were just sitting there in the American League playing great, I mean, what are they telling you? Like, how are they explaining this to you? What is your agent telling you?
He's telling me to stick with it, because we're doing everything that we need to do, which is something that got, a little old after 6 years of, doing it. But I think you touched on it. I mean, a lot of wrong place, wrong time, wrong era. When I got drafted, as Trav said, that was 2003. A pretty darn good goalie was drafted first overall that year in Marc Andre Fleury. Now, Marc was a very slender, 170 pounds, soaking wet, Gumby, super quick around the eye, very flashy. That was the mold I felt that during that time. That's who they were trying to find. Those were the goals. I was playing at 6'3", 230. I was a very large statured goalie who was, like a Luongo looking, guy in the net. And that wasn't what the new age of goaltending was at the time, at least how I felt. So Fleury, and he was the new cookie cutter people were trying to fill. I got a lot of shit from a lot of coaches about, being the size that I was. And, that grew contentious at some places. And despite what I was able to do on the ice, it just, like you say, you run into somebody like Hank, who's and I've been fortunate to play with so many unbelievable goalie partners across the whole career. But Hank was second to none. And when you see somebody like that come in, we started the same year, right? So that was his rookie year, was my rookie year. And I got to be with him for his first shutout, got to be with him for a lot of his first games in New York. And it became very clear and evident that this net was his and it wasn't going anywhere else. And so, you got to play out a 3-year deal. You got to play out a 3-year deal there in New York. The very next year after I was drafted, Al Montoya was drafted by the Rangers in the first round. So, like you said, 2003, extremely deep draft, maybe a 6th rounder, would have been a 3rd rounder in another year. But, when Monty got drafted that next year, 5th overall, this was now I have Hank and now I have Monty to deal with as far as on the kind of political pecking order of what was going to happen. And so, you spend your time in the coast, you spend your time in the AHL, you get some call-ups to the show, you go back to the coast, you go straight back to the show, you go straight back to the coast. And it's just like, man, that year, I believe I set the record at the time, and I don't know if it still stands up, but I think I had 15 or 16 transactions that first year with New York up and down the system, from the Rangers to Hartford to Charlotte. Like I said, a lot of times from Charlotte straight to New York, and then straight. I didn't even get to stop in Hartford on the way back down, just straight back down. So it eventually became a situation where I'd go into the coach's office for the 9th time of the year, and he goes, "Hey, we're gonna be sending you down." It's like, okay, well, is this one where I get to take a plane, or am I taking my car? Like, which one is it? He's like, "You're taking your car." So I'm like, okay, I'm not coming back.
What is the conversation with your agent at the time? Because I'd like to think that despite it being the greatest draft widely regarded as in NHL history, you got an opportunity, and then Montoya goes 5th, and you're like, well, what the hell? What am I going to do now? The agent says, just keep going at it, keep chipping away 20 miles, 20 smiles. I mean, you're dressing for games in his rookie season, so like it can't be that bad.
Yeah, it felt like I was just really close. Like you said, you're on the team. You're up, 15 games a year, 20 games a year in the NHL, mostly for injury stuff. But like you're the guy that's getting the call up, so you feel like you're just right on the cusp of, maybe next year I'm going to get the real look, or maybe next year I'm going to get an opportunity to come up here and make the team as the backup, or be somebody who can get a start here and there and prove my value. Maybe it'll increase my trade value somewhere if I can get a start, win a few games, get sent down. Maybe you get in a situation where you can get a one-way, now you get clear waivers and do things like that. So it's like, it felt like we were so close, but I mean, obviously as Hank took over the spot as prolifically as he did, when the deal was coming up in New York, there was not going to, there's no desire to re-sign there. It was time to go somewhere else.
So to set the record straight, you didn't kick anyone's dog. You didn't smash the owner's vehicle.
No.
None of those things were factors in any of this.
I did. I'll tell you a story about Tom Renney, who was the coach there, and a good guy. I had a great time playing for him. But he was one of the guys that wanted the smaller goalie at the time, and Hank wasn't big either. I mean, at the time, he was also a very, flower-looking guy. And so I remember there was a postseason, we were doing an exit interview. I think I'd gone on a good run in Hartford in the playoffs. I'm like, I felt pretty good about where I was at, wanted a shot to make it. Weeksy was the backup. He wasn't coming back. And so I think he might have even retired after that season. So it was like, felt like there was a spot that I could at least fight for. And I went into his office and he said, you got to get a lot smaller. You got to get a lot smaller. And I'm just like, I don't know what you want me to do. I should have been a lineman, but I'm a goalie. Like I should have been, I'm in the wrong sport. I'm a football player identifying as a hockey player at the moment.
and now they're begging for guys that are your size or bigger.
I know. It kills me, So anyway, he's in the office. He goes, you got to get smaller. I said, I disagree. Like I'm playing great. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know how much smaller you think I can get. At the time I was a pretty lean 230. He goes, I want you to be down, like under 220. Like, I want you to be way down, this and that. And I go, okay. So I tell you what, I'll make you a deal. I said, if I come back under, 220, because he was in my face about it a little bit. I was like, if I come back under the weight that you want, like, you give me a real shot. I was like, and if I don't, you can rip my deal up and I'll go somewhere else. Like, I'm done with this. And he's like, fine, deal. So that summer I went home, I just ran. I didn't even lift the weight. I just ran. Probably like 5 miles a day, 6 miles a day, just running constantly. Came back in. I was so small and was under the weight. I was like, tell this guy to come weigh me in himself. Like I'm going to do it. And was under the weight. But I didn't play that good that year. I was weak. I was, I didn't feel like I was very fast anymore. Like I lost a lot of the power that was kind of there. Probably just didn't do it the right way. Right. Like I just thought I had to run and sit in a sauna and just shrink. But yeah, so people wanted the small goalies, and then you get guys like, Bish that come into the league, and guys that are just, the big goalies started coming in just as I was going over to Russia. So that's, that's the whole thing. But yeah, just didn't get the opportunities,
Well, so I'm curious to know how your expectations changed because, you played in the USHL, correct? The junior hockey in the US.
I played for the U.S. National Team Development Program.
Right. Oh, so which is now, is that the same? I know there's a lot of that. Then they were kind of figuring out exactly how the structure was going to work, right?
Yeah, we were on a tour. And actually Monty had left the NTDP to go to Michigan a year early. I think he accelerated his high school to go to Michigan early, which vacated a spot on the NTDP that I took up. And at that time, we weren't really part of a league. We were just on a tour. We played USHL teams, but mostly we were on a tour playing college teams.
Okay, so from there to college, you come out of the draft. You know you're probably not going to go high because it was such a incredible class of players. So your expectations going in are probably like, okay, if I can get a few games here and there. Tell me how they altered throughout the season and when you finally decided to make that decision going, all right, I'm going overseas.
Well, that's twofold. So when I came out of college and I got before I went to the draft, I went to the combine, which, as great of an agent as I felt I had, this was a huge miss on his part. So I go to the combine and I noticed, and at the time I think I was ranked on that like central scouting list of like the third or fourth ranked goalie in the world at the time. So I'm like, I might be a top 3 round, I'm thinking to be top 3 rounds. So talk about shifting expectations. I go to the combine and you got to do the fitness test at the combine. But I realized I'm looking around. I'm like, some of these other highly touted goalies are not here. Like Jimmy Howard wasn't there. Like some of the other guys that were on the list. I'm like, where are all these goalies? So we go into this thing to do the list, and I think I'm following maybe Luch or somebody's right in front of me that's a strong guy. And I, at the time I was just, I wasn't very, I wasn't benching all year. You know what I mean? So we get in and I watch this guy in front of me rip off. You had to do 185 pounds. It was at 185, I think, on the bench, and you had to rep it out as many times as you could. And I'm like, 185 for like, I could maybe do like 1 at the time, And I remember I watched this guy rip off like 30 of these things, and all the scouts are there. All the GMs are like, oh yeah, like this guy's amazing. He's like, oh, who's next? And I'm like, fuck, I get on the bench. I lay down on the bench. I got these guys. They're all hyping you up. Like, let's go. Let's get this fucking thing up. They dropped that thing on my chest, boys. It was a very assisted one. A very assisted one. Didn't do a lot of pre-draft prep, I guess you could call it, that season in high school.
364 more days till tryouts. See you next year.
Oh my God. I called my agent after. I said, I think we've made a horrible mistake,
It's like,
so I felt
you.
Yeah, and by me I mean you. And that draft went 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9 me. And I was like, this was bad.
Wow.
But yeah, no, to get back to your question about shifting and finding it time to go overseas. I mean, once you leave, at least in my experience, once you leave the team that drafts you, you now don't have very much equity in where you're at. So when I went to St. Louis, regardless of how you're playing, you're behind all the draft picks that they have. They've invested a lot in those picks. People's names are on the line for those picks. Same thing I went to Ottawa, same thing. It's just you're behind all the picks, and you go straight to the coast, and you got to really grind your way up. And it just became very clear that, this road is maybe not for me. And a lot of these doors just keep getting slammed. And so, I got an opportunity. My roommate in bingo was Kasper's Dogovins. The guy used to love to do the spinorama and the shootout.
I remember that with the knob on Tuukka Rask?
With the knob with the toe on the puck. You remember that?
Yep.
So he was my roommate, Latvian player, and he was going to the Vancouver Olympics for Latvia that year. And so he went to that team and played in the Olympics. And the GM of the Olympic team was also the GM of the KHL team in Riga. And he said, hey, I got a goalie who's really good and he's looking to get out. And that's how I made my opportunity to go over there.
That's simple.
Tripled my income, in one day. But it just was time. Every door was getting shut. I had to go make the money while I was still healthy to do it.
But if I'm doing the math here, you've got a child that's probably somewhere floating around 8 or 9 years old, and you're talking to the wife saying, "Hey, we're going to Russia."
I wish that was the case, and I've seen a lot of your guys' episodes on kind of how it goes with some of the women out there. But unfortunately, I spent 13 years alone on all of these things, all these seasons. They came for the first season with 15 transactions, never came again.
Wow.
And that was it. So it was she had the input for the financial reason. I had the input of I remember I got traded or I got sold to a team that was deep in Russia, really deep. And I was like, I don't know if I want to go there. I've been on the road for the last 2 years. I know what it's like there. It's rough. It's rough where you're going. And, but it was a huge dollar, it was a big ticket to go there. And I had another opportunity in Germany to go there. And I was sort of like, man, way less money, but way better life, And obviously, we know what I was getting pushed to do. But I remember I stayed up all night that night. I didn't sleep a wink. I was borderline in tears. I didn't know what to do with my life. I didn't know what was going on. People telling me to do stuff. I'm like, you're not even going to be there. So it was like, you don't get to have a vote in this. And I said, you don't understand what's like over there in some of those places. So, I took the money. I went, but it was, it was tough. So, I mean, I didn't see them very much during the seasons, and that took its own tolls on everything. But the decision to go to Russia was really mostly financial and just an opportunity at a clean slate. There's no draft over there, so at least none that we're involved in. So you're going over there with carte blanche to build your name up again and start fresh, and an opportunity to make an incredible living. So those all things considered, and everything I learned about Riga, Latvia was that it was an unbelievable town, and it was best place I ever played. And very thankful for that opportunity, and it really worked out. I played in the All-Star game. But once you go, you can't come back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for a lot of reasons, I think back then they was sort of looked down upon to go to the KHL. But also the way that their seasons work and the way that they do their contracts, their seasons are ending right as the NHL playoffs are beginning. So what they do in order to keep you there is then they dangle the extension on you and put like a 2-week time limit on it. And you can't talk to any NHL teams. They're not in free agent mode. They're still in play mode, and nobody wants to talk to you about next year. And so it's like bird in the hand's worth waiting and hoping for something in the NHL 2 months from now that if you don't get, you back in the coast, you were an KHL All-Star and now you're back in the coast somewhere. So that's how they kind of get the hooks in you over there, is those seasons end really early. They start early and they end early. And they dangle the dollars and they put a quick turnaround on the time limit.
Well, listen, before we get deeper into that, let me just say man-to-man, that whole hunter-gatherer situation as far as, making sure you provide for the family. I know it doesn't seem as slick, to the wandering eye, but you did a good thing. You did it for your family, and so kudos to you, man. That's huge.
I appreciate it. I wish they got to see it, as I get older and my kids are getting older, and I think they wish they got to see, Dad before, this version of me. So I think that that's a part that I really regret. I really wish that they were there for all of that. And I think any success is always better when you get to share it with somebody. And so a lot of the things that I was accomplishing that were, dreams that I had and things that were happening to me, they were all kind of, you walk out of the arena and you get in your car by yourself and you're like, well, I guess that was a pretty good day,
Wow.
home meal for one. That's how it goes.
And for a lot of that, I mean, we're just kind of getting into the mid-level of, being able to FaceTime on a regular basis. So communication is still not perfect.
Early days of that, right? Like it would have been, Skype was still kind of a big thing that was taken off. That made things a little bit easier. But I don't even know if FaceTime was really around yet, so it was really just Skype was how you were doing it. The time zone makes it brutal, right? When you're in Siberia, I'm waking up as they're going to bed, right? So I'd have to get up at 2 a.m. every day just to see my kids for 15 minutes, before they went to school. Like, and that was it. Like that was all you got for the whole day. And so, so you kind of just grind through it. You become numb to it. It's like somebody who's in prison, right? If they think that they all day complain that they're in prison, it's just going to be a really tough time until you just sort of accept, this is the situation you're in. You got to make the best of it. And her and I get along extremely well. Now everything's great. Our kids are great. And I'm so happy to be home and be able to see their activities and do all their stuff. So it's
and look, not to age you, but I'm gonna say you're probably within the next decade of being a grandpa. So you get to it
ain't far off. It ain't far off. I'm still a young, I'm a young dad, and I'm in a band. I'm still a child. Like, let's be honest, I'm still a child. I work a serious job, but I'm a singer in a band, and I'm still a kid at heart.
Good for you, man.
Can we go back to, you mentioned it about 10 minutes ago, like your wife coming along for the journey? Do you mind if we get into that since you brought it up?
We can get into it a little bit, yeah.
So like the stats that we've talked about in the show, and obviously we brought this up for every single episode. If you're
you beat the odds. First off, good for you. That's incredible.
Still together?
Truthfully, that's incredible.
Still together, same girl?
No, divorced 6 years.
Oh.
Son of a bitch! I take it back.
Way to go, Dave.
I'm one of the statistics. I'm one of the statistics from your episodes.
Wait, so the stat is 70% of couples will split with the woman pulling the pin over a majority of the time within less than 365 days of retirement of the player. You fall into that category?
Almost. I say it was about 700 days of retirement, and I was the one who ended up pulling the pin out.
Really?
Wow.
Oh, wow. That is an outlier. We have a first.
That's an outlier. Hey, look, it's sometimes it was a situation, sadly, someone had to do it. That's kind of where it was. It had to be done. It is what it is.
Hey,
that's kind of how it was. But like I said, I'm definitely continue to be an outlier in as good of a relationship as we have, all things considered. And, we spend a lot of holidays together, and the kids are in a really great environment, and there's no arguing. And I know from a lot of friends that I have who are in a similar situation that is a very rare situation I'm finding. Mm-hmm. And it takes big people to be able to put the past in the past and just look forward and have a good relationship. And I would really advise anyone in that situation to try to follow that lead, because, it's exhausting being hateful. It's exhausting for everybody that's involved. And I'm very thankful for her and her family, and we're all still extremely close.
Okay.
Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask? She was along for the whole ride: New York, St. Louis, and Ottawa.
Yep. Yeah, everything, all the way till from we just kind of gotten together a couple months before I signed the deal to go to New York out of college. So, and I was only in college for 2 years, so it was. So it was literally the entire career.
Can I ask? Do you remember how you met? Remember the first date?
I do. We were actually mutual friends. I used to hang out with the baseball team a lot when I was playing hockey here in Nebraska, and I went to a party and kind of met there through some mutual friends, and we kind of had a chat of early on of sort of you're jumping on a moving train here. I'm not from here. I don't live here. I don't plan to stay here. This is the situation, but something big's about to happen. And, are you in or are you out? Well, at the time we were in, we learned later we were out.
Fun train ride, though. Fun train ride.
Yeah, it's still a great train ride. It would. I sit and think a lot, and I don't like to sit and, feel self-pity and all this crap, but I do wonder what it would be like if I did have my family there and that wasn't this shadow cast over all those years of, when it's all fun and games when you're at the rink, but when you go home, then it's shitty. You're just by yourself. You're wondering what everyone's doing. You're missing everything. So, I do wonder what could have been. And you hear all the guys that have these great, long, prolific careers, and they're always so thankful of their family who was extremely supportive, and theirs through the whole thing. And I think that is an important piece of it. So for anybody that's about to start this dream, really evaluate who you're with, have those conversations about where you're going, and make sure you're on the same page, because that's a huge thing. And it's a huge thing to mentally have to deal with. Dealing with the struggles of being a pro athlete is enough. And when you have to deal with that on the outside, it's a lot more that hopefully you don't have to carry.
Well, a guy that you actually played in the league against a few times, I'm sure, Sean Heshka, he did the same thing where his family stayed back in Canada while he was over there. And I remember him sharing how difficult it was, being that far apart. And there was some lonely nights, that's for sure. I did it for a couple of months out of the time. I mentioned to you before we started the show that I was down in Mexico for 2 years during the pandemic, and I had to come back to Winnipeg for 2-3 months at a time and leave my family down there. And it killed me. It killed me. Like I couldn't handle it.
Yeah. And I get it. It's a tough life. And like I said, that first year was, exponentially tough with 15 transactions. I wasn't home a lot. You're trying to set up a home base. You're trying to set up a routine and a lifestyle. And you're just every 2 weeks, I'm on a different team this. Eventually it's just like, is this how it is? I'm like, I really don't think so. This is my first year too, but I don't think it's always like this. I think this is very rare, maybe a couple a year if you're lucky, but 15 or 16 in 1 year was a lot. It was a lot for her to endure. It wasn't probably as advertised on my part, but definitely not as advertised the other way as well. So it just, we stuck it out. Kids came along, that complicated things even more, made it even more difficult. And then it's, eventually hockey runs out and you become a stat.
Hey.
Isn't it kind of funny? She looks at you like, is this normal? Like, I'm trying to figure this out.
I don't know. It can't be. I'm like, it can't be normal. I really don't know, though. We're learning about all this at the same time.
Chris, you're giving me literally a deja vu. Keep in mind, I played for 6,000 different minor league teams in the Mickey Mouse Pro League. And all the women that I dated during that time, is this normal? Like, do you really they just traded you, and then 45 minutes later, another team traded for you. Is this normal? I don't know. I'm trying to figure this out too.
Yeah.
Your guess is as good as mine. Aren't you the pro? Yeah. Kind of. Not really.
So, yeah. So, I mean, the family dynamic is difficult. You know, that was definitely a difficult hurdle. And, you know, but at this point, I mean, we're so far into it now, you know, it really is very, very minimal hard feelings. And like I said, my kids are great and we have a great relationship. So everything's really good.
As they say, it's not the destination, it's the journey. And man, you sound like you've had a few.
It is, you know, we're honestly pretty good friends at this point.
Was there a point though after you finally settled over in the KHL where you kind of thought, okay, I'm here for a tenure? Did you kind of feel like you were setting up a bit of a home where you had a bit of a tenure there?
Absolutely. So when I got to Riga and learned what that was, which was incredible. It was probably like being a Leaf in Toronto. You know, it's the biggest thing in town. Everyone in the whole country is dialed in on what's going on. You're in the tabloid magazines. You're getting the VIP service everywhere. This was a level of fame that I never thought was possible over there. And I never wanted to leave. I had a 2-year deal there. I played out the 2-year deal. I had my all-star season in that second year, and everybody on that team. So in the KHL, you've got about, there's 30 teams or so. 8 or 9 of them sit outside of the Russian border. So you have your Latvian team, your Belarusian team, Ukrainian team, Kazakhstan, China. So you got all these teams that kind of live outside of the border, and they have different rules. You can have more imports on those teams, but at the same time, you don't quite have, you don't quite have as much of the mob money. You don't have the huge dollars on some of those teams, and so. What happens in Riga a lot of the time is when they get some big stars that come over to that team and do really well, after their contract's up, they sign the big ticket in Russia and they leave, right? They jump ship. Well, I was super invested in staying, willing to take the pay cut to stay, or at least cut from what I could get inside the border. And I had a deal worked out with the GM as we got to the end of that season, that second season. Right before I was about to get that deal faxed over to me, he left the team and went to the new expansion team that was going to be in Prague. And so the new GM took over, who was just all business. And he said, man, for Chris Holt, I could sell him to a Russian team, get the money, pay 5 of my guys with that money. And we're going to just go ahead and do that. And so I was,
here you are slave to the business of it again, right?
I was back in the business. I said, oh, come on. Can I call any shots in this career ever? Do I ever get to that moment where you get to pick where you want to go? That never came. So I got the call that deal wasn't going to happen, and I was going to leave. And the fan base there was pretty upset. I'd done a lot in the community there and become kind of a face of that team, and they were very upset that I was doing what everybody else does and taking the money, which was not the case. I was just literally getting sold. So I got a call from my Russian agent who says there's this team in Ekaterinburg, which is way in, 6 time zones in. I said they want to buy you from Riga, and I was like, oh God, I don't know. And he goes, well, what's it going to take to get you to go there? I was like, okay, now we're talking. Now we're playing. So I threw out what I thought was a ridiculous number. I think in Riga I was making 200. I think I threw out 650 or something. I threw some number that was triple what I was making. He goes, oh, okay, I'll call you back. So I was in Hawaii on vacation, and I got a call from this agent that said, hey, you wouldn't believe it, but they're going to do it. If you want to. Are you going to go? If they make the purchase, are you just not going to not show up? And I was like, no, so then you got to think. Then you got the German and the Russian dilemma of you got the big ticket way on the inside, or, you go to the DEL and you have a nice career, and everybody who I talk to in the DEL is having an amazing time. They get pension after 2 years. It was a good situation there. And everybody told me to take the money. So I took the money and I went in.
And so, do you regret it?
No, I would probably say no. I got all the money, so that was good. That was kind of a rare thing over there.
How many duffel bags did it take to fit that 650 in?
Well, that's a whole other, that's a whole nother problem that we have over there, right? Because you can only deposit cash if you're a citizen. So when you get some of that, game bonuses, or maybe you got a shutout and the owner comes down and slaps $20,000 of cash in your hand, everyone's giving you a round of applause. It's like, well, what do I do with this now? I can't send it home, so what do you do? So then you got to go pay, you got to go pay a bank lady to deposit it into her account and then hope she's going to deposit it into your account. Then you pay off the bank manager to make a wire back to the United States. And then it just snowballs and snowballs into different problems. But
you tell me there's no direct deposit?
There was no direct. I mean, there was some direct deposit, but that was for only your on paper money, and that was going into a Russian bank account, and then you had to wire it home, and that was complicated. So,
if you don't mind me asking, can you give me a full rundown of how this works? Because I've never heard of the actual finances. Like you're getting paid every 2 weeks, 1st and 15th, direct deposit some, sock others. Like, give me a full picture, please, if you don't mind, Chris.
Yeah. So at least how it worked for me and most of the teams that I played for, you had your on paper money, which was what you signed for in your contract, which was the actual amount you got. So it was a post tax sum that you were going to ultimately get. That was what we called kind of the on paper money. And then you had off paper money, which was teams would have a lot of cash incentives that weren't part of your contract. So maybe you win, you have the snowball effect of like winning games. So if you win a game, everyone on the team gets $1,000. If you win 2, you get 2. If you win 3, you get 4. If you win 4, you get 8. And these keep compounding as incentives to win. Like we were not professionals, or everyone's already, at least in my mind, and everyone's like, well, we try to win every night, by the way, but if you're going to give us cash, okay, whatever, not do anything different. So that there's a way to get all of this sort of off the books dollars that were performance based. A lot of them are incentive based. A big one was making the playoffs. If you make the playoffs, everyone on the team might get a $50,000 cash bonus for making the playoffs. So it's like, okay, well, then I'm sure you can guess what happens a little bit once you get down to the last 5 games of the season and your team really needs points and the other team you're playing against might already be in or might already be eliminated and you really need to win that game. Maybe you have a little conversation with the captain on the other team, see what they're willing to do to help out. You know what I mean? And that's just part of the culture over there a little bit is, just doing all that. So you have the on paper money, the off paper money. And when you're not, at least in, for example, when I was in Ukraine, if you were not a Ukrainian citizen, then you could not deposit cash into your account. You can only get direct deposits from wherever. And so what you'd have to do is you'd have to go up to, Svetlana, the lady that's at the window, and you'd have to give her $1,000 to deposit all this cash into her account. And then she would take the money from her account and transfer it over into your account. Well, then you have to make a wire transfer back to the U.S. if you want to get it home. So then you have to go talk to the bank manager about getting a wire transfer back home. And maybe there's some hoops to go through with that. So you give him a little take on the side, and then he takes care of it for you, and all of a sudden your money makes it back to the U.S.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So, yeah, there's who's the guy that's like, oh, man, who was it? I think it was an old UNO guy. I think Jeff Hogan was only a couple games away from getting pension in the NHL. I don't want to name drop Jeff, and I don't know if it was him for sure. But there's been guys that have been close to those situations where it's like, man, you just got called up for a couple more games. You're in a whole different spot.
Yeah, the NFL is famous for that. 2-3 games
right.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, you just, you get pulled out after the first half, and you're like, what the heck? Yeah. Or you don't get any more targets that game, right? Like, so there's always that kind of stuff. And in Russia, maybe it's a little more prolific and a lot less regulated. So that's what happens.
When they're giving you the money, this is
usually on a monthly basis, so we would get called into the locker room at midnight, and you'd have to come in at midnight, and everybody would be there, and you're all sitting in your stalls. I had never done this before. Like, I don't know what the hell's going on, but we're at the rink at midnight, and I'm going, what is this? And they go, it's bonus night. I'm like, well, what's that? He goes, you're going to go in the coach's office, and there's going to be a bunch of people that you've never seen around before, and they're going to have this huge pile of money just sitting on the coach's desk, like $1 million. Looks like the end of the World Series of Poker when they dump the thing on the middle of the table. It's just all cash and stuff on there. It's exactly what it looks like. And so you sit in there in the room, and you're sitting in the chair, and one of your coaches is like, okay, well, you were player of the game 3 times. We got 6 wins this month. You got a shutout. You got an assist and, whatever. How about, $40,000? And you're like, okay, all right. And they just want American hundreds. And I remember sitting there going, how'd you guys get all this American? I'm just this naive kid. Like, how'd you guys get all this American money? And they're like, no.
Yeah, no.
No questions, please. So you get these fat envelopes of cash that, first of all, now you don't have nothing. Now you got to go pay the lady, pay the guy. You got to go do all this stuff. But you're doing it at midnight so you don't get robbed when you leave, right? Because what an easy target to do. Just start picking people off at gunpoint.
Well, those are some of the stories that I heard. Is that you get your duffel bag, and on the way out, the same guys that you saw in that room are rolling you about 2 blocks down the road.
So you're like, I had a driver at the time, so I'd call him. I'd say, hey, man, start the car, pull it up to the door. Like, I'm coming out hot,
Back up
And
the
then,
French tip.
I got to tell you a quick story about the driver, too, because it was a real Wolf of Wall Street moment. Right when I got to Ukraine, a bunch of the guys were like, you have to find a driver. I'm like, okay, well, I got to find one that speaks English. Like, that would be really great. And so I'm standing at a hotel bar of the hotel I'm living in at the time. And, after a bunch of girls come up and ask you what kind of car you drive, there's a guy sitting there and he's speaking English to somebody. And I literally walk over to him. I go, hey, he's probably about the same age, maybe late 20s. I go, hey, do you speak English? He goes, yeah, I kind of speak English. I go, what do you do? He goes, I work in some factory. I go, how much you make? He goes, I make 800 US, a month, something like that. And I said, I'll give you 1,500 US a month cash, no tax, to be my driver. So what kind of car do you have? He goes, I have a Mercedes. It was like an old Mercedes. I go, I'll give you 1,500 a month cash money to quit your job right now and be my driver. And he's like, 1,500? He goes, show me. I went to the ATM. I pulled out $1,500, Ukrainian equivalent, and brought it back up to the bar. I put it on the table. And I said, here you go. And he got on the phone. He called his boss. He goes, hey, I quit. and he was my driver for the rest of the year.
You show me a check for $22,000, and I'm calling my boss.
How else are you going to do that? Like, that's the only way that you can do it. It's not like there's a bank of drivers hanging out. So I wanted to find some
white teeth. Just seems so fucked up.
Yeah, so that's how you find the driver over there. You just go up to some random and offer him a bunch of money to quit his job on the spot. And then he does.
Tell me this guy's still on your Christmas card list.
I wish, I was over in Ukraine when the conflict started. So, I went to meet the president.
Zelensky?
We got an opportunity. Huh?
You went to go meet Zelensky?
No, he was a couple presidents after. The first guy was, Viktor Yanukovych, maybe.
That sounds right.
Yeah, this was like 13, 14. And the team before had won some Continental Cup tournament, or they'd done something great. And so now this year I'm there, and we get to go meet the president at their, whatever the White House is of Ukraine in Kiev. And so we show up, we all get these fancy tailored suits, and, everyone's got their own custom suit. And I was like, oh, that's a pretty good deal. And we go to Kiev, and we're sitting in the White House there, and he comes in, you meet this. I mean, it's a powerful guy. You can tell when he walks in, when the president of a country walks into a room, you feel that. Like, that's a real thing. And, we kind of have a little conversation. I didn't understand shit. I was just kind of hanging out. But I was maybe about a month or so later that he did not sign the deal to join the EU and joined like this Euro-Asian that was much more Russian supported, deal, basically a deal the other way. And the people of Ukraine had none of that. And then the revolution of dignity started, and Russia came in, took Crimea. Like, I was there for all that. And so, it was like a Forrest Gump moment, where you just find yourself in these moments in history, just randomly,
What's the conversation like in the locker room between the guys, especially a lot of the imports?
I mean, we were I think a lot of us were a little confused as to what was going on. We didn't understand the dynamics of what was really, because it all kind of popped off very quickly, and he fled the country, and now there's no president, and he fled to Russia. So I think it was confusing for a lot of guys. And then I ended up getting hurt. I had a season-ending injury that year, which was a whole nother debacle. But I ended up coming back to the United States, and the guys, I remember they went to the playoffs, and they went on the road, and they said, bring all the stuff because we're not coming back. The Rebels are going to take the airport. Like, anything you bring is what's coming with you because we're not coming back. And they played their home games in Slovakia, and they played the road games wherever the road games were.
Wow.
So they were in it. They were in the thick of it when the Russians first came in, and we were in Donetsk, which is on the east side. So we were very close to, the entry point of a lot of that. So that was a wild time.
Were you ever expecting a different kind of helmet to be hanging inside of your locker?
They burnt the rink down. They came in and they torched the rink. And so it was a beautiful arena too. They torched it, they looted it and torched it. And so,
wow,
that was the end. That was the end of that.
Wow.
You just find yourself in these. It happened a lot that I just sort of found myself in a lot of these weird political moments that were popping off. And they fought so hard for the freedom, and then basically the president gave it all back, and they were like, "Nope, we're going to burn the country down."
Well, I was going to say not to change gears too much, but that sounds like a politician signs a deal more in Russia's favor. The people didn't like it. Okay, I'm leaving. I'm going to Russia.
That's what he did. That's I guess it's pretty par for the course. But that's exactly what happened. They were going to join the EU. The people were all in favor. I think their parliament or whatever, they all voted very heavily to join the EU, and he signed the other one. And he had a lot of oligarch influence and Russian influence, obviously. And in a lot of those countries, it's very split. You have very Russian-leaning people and you have very Western-leaning people. Same as in Latvia and Estonia and Belarus. I think a lot of the political stuff is very split. It's very hard to become citizens of that country to vote. You have to take the test in the native language and do all sorts of stuff because a lot of those countries are vacation places for Russians. And so they come in and they plant seeds and they buy property and then they want to go vote and they want to vote in Russian-leaning leadership so you can kind of get that lifestyle back.
So you're telling me you can't come in not speaking English or not coming in, bring in your entire 13 family members and then vote 2 years later? That's not common over there?
Feels like we may be dealing with maybe some of that over here. And so that's what happened there. Yeah. And then there was a revolution and I got to watch some of it out my bedroom window.
Let me dig into this a bit because I'm fascinated by it, and I've always been fascinated by it. But I think most people, when they think Russia, they have an idea of Moscow and they have an idea of St. Petersburg, really lovely, really clean, metropolitan cities. But then when you start getting in some of those outlier areas that you mentioned where you played, you have that image of the scene from Iron Man 2 where, it's cold and there's nothing but gangsters walking around. Is that the kind of place that you were in?
Not terribly. I mean, Yekaterinburg was one of the biggest cities in Russia. I think it's maybe fourth largest. So it was quite metropolitan feeling. But you're right, though. I mean, you have the teams that are in Moscow, you have St. Petersburg, and you pretty much have Yekaterinburg. And then outside of that, until you get to the far east, like Khabarovsk and some of those eastern countries that are on the sea, 20 of the 30 teams in there are rough. It's rough. It's dark, snow-covered, not a lot of beautiful apartments that you get to, a chance to stay in. And it's, you're seeing really the effects of communist Russia, right? These are government built buildings that, when the government's in charge, everything gets real cheap, real quick.
And then you got Kazan, which I hear is beautiful.
Beautiful. Like I said, there's probably 10 of the teams that like everybody wants to go to. It's kind of like the non-taxable teams in the NHL, right? Everybody wants to go play for those. But there's those cities that are definitely elite and they treat their players well. They pay them great. They pay them on time. Those are the things that happens. And then you got like 15 of the teams that are like, oh man, I got traded there. It's like, ooh,
are those a few of those places where the incentive is you might make a little bit more over there?
You're going to make a little more because you got to get guys to go. It's just whether or not you get it once you sign the deal, right? Because I remember I missed a paycheck it was like the end of the month and I didn't see the deposit hit, and I went in to ask one of the guys like, hey, what's going on? He was like, well, what do you mean? I go, well, my deposit it'd be nice to get paid, And he goes, just wait longer. There's no problem.
Checks in the mail.
Yeah, we figured it out. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, what are the three biggest lies of pro hockey?
Holt, so the biggest 3 lies in pro hockey?
Oh, man, I'm going to agree with them, whatever you say.
Checks in the mail.
Yeah.
You're only going down for 2 weeks.
You better bring your car.
And the third we can't say publicly on the airwaves.
Okay, fair enough.
I'll tell you after we finish recording.
Yeah, okay. But 2 of the 3 are definitely I've heard many times.
Also, you were a good-looking dude back when you were playing, dude. You're still good-looking, but
I was.
So I guarantee you're going to agree with the third one, but I'll tell you when we finish recording. Can't put it publicly.
Outside of the stuff at the rink and then a lot of the stories that we've heard, what's the most Russian thing that you saw when you were in Russia?
Oh my gosh. I always thought that gypsy cabs were crazy, and gypsy cabs are, they are on the street. It's kind of like Uber, but unregulated. Like you just put your arm, it's just hitchhiking is what it is. So we would be in Moscow and it'd be after a game and we'd want to go to some club or some bar, maybe the Moscow guys are like, hey, come with us to this bar or whatever. And you'd go onto the street and some guys would just stick their arm out and a random Lada would pull up with just a dude smoking a cigarette. He's like, where are you going? We're like, oh, to this bar. He's like, get in, $5. And you're just jumping into strangers' vehicles. I mean, we're doing it now with Uber, but this was pre-Uber. So it was a very foreign concept to get into any car that wasn't yours or not a taxi. And so people were just sticking arms out and jumping into random people's vehicles who were just pulling over to pick up random people on the street, just trying to make $5. Wow. And I thought that was a very Russian thing, you know.
I asked this question of most guys that have played overseas, but how did you do with the language barrier and the food?
Food, 90% not good. I think that I would say a lot of the food that I ate with the team looked like it could have been cooked by a middle schooler, you know, boiled chicken. I remember they once brought me a bowl of hot water with an egg floating in it and some green onion. And I said, what is this? What is this egg water? And they're like, that's soup. I go, this is egg water. What are we talking about? You know, you're eating pasta with ketchup and mayonnaise because they don't have tomato sauce over there. You know, like this is just the stuff that would come out. Some of it was good. A lot of it was like, there's a toddler making this food back for sure. Because my kids can cook better than this, and they're, you know.
I'm assuming the good meals were in the St. Petersburgs, the Moscows,
the good cities, yeah, the good hotels, you know, because sometimes you're going to these cities that are small and you're barely staying. I don't even know if you classify it as like a hotel. It's more of like a hostel. You know, you're going up and you're getting on a bed that has sheets that look like, you know, from your grandmother's house. They're not just like white or whatever. It's just like the sheets that have been in the family forever. Or, you know, you get the midnight call at some of those from all the ladies of the night hanging around in the lobby and stuff like that. And then it's just, you know, some of it is pretty rough, but on the whole, you know, it was a good experience. Like for the most part, except for the injury, we'll call it, I don't know what you'd call it. I get screwed out of a lot of money there. And, you know, for the most part, it was a good experience. It was a good experience. In the same cards in the same hand, I'd make the same call. I'd go and do it again.
I got to ask about this because I know you were in the league when it happened, but just the kind of aftermath of the conversation in the locker room and the league in general after the Lokomotiv disaster.
Not good. We had just played them. We were I was in the last game that they ever played.
For those that don't know, really quickly, if you're watching the show and you don't know, this is the KHL team that went up in their plane, and the plane apparently had a few bolts that weren't strapped down, and that plane unfortunately went down, and they lost the entire plane, which was just an absolute tragedy. And yeah,
that was not good. First of all, some unbelievable hockey players on that team. They were winning the cup, hands down. Like they were good. I wouldn't have been shocked if they ran the 60-game table and didn't lose. Like that's how good of a team they had. I remember I took the trash out and I came back up and I had a phone call that said, you know, the whole team's gone. Like they were taken off out of Yaroslavl, and from what I remember, a very short runway airport, and so they didn't get up very high. You know, they got up 100 feet and crashed into the river at the end of the runway. And yeah, everybody, I think 2 people had survived initially and made it to the hospital. But yeah, the whole team was gone. It was devastation across the league. I know they didn't play that night. They were on their way to their first game of the season. And we played the final exhibition game against them. And so, and we lost, you know, but it was odd because I just shook all their hands like 3 days ago. You know, it was crazy.
Is there a conversation? Because I know that there wasn't exactly a lot of faith from the guys that I knew. You know, you go over there, you're like, some of these planes are a little sketchy. And then after that happened, was there at least a union mind of going in saying, we got to travel better? Was there a bit of a reform in that respect?
There was in some regards. And you're right that guys would come over from the NHL, you know, and some guys just couldn't deal with the shock of what it was like being there. Like I remember Joffrey Lupul came and lived with me when I was in Ekaterinburg for a month. It was a lockout year, and he came over, and I remember he's like, Holtzy, I'm going to go back home for Christmas. And I said, man, just take all your shit, man. You don't need to be here, you know? But I remember that after that plane crash, there was a particular plane, I think it was called the Yak 45. And it was a very old airplane. It would always struggle, you know, and there were guys that left the league prior to the crash just being like, I'm not doing this. Like, I'm not getting on these planes. I'm not traveling this way. This is wildly dangerous. And so I think for the North American guys that were there, or even the European guys, I think everybody kind of felt like someday, you know, something is going to happen. And then it did. And at the time there was a rule that if you were on a non-Russian team, which I was in Riga, we could have our plane bring us in and take us out. But for all the games we were playing on like a 5-game swing inside of the border, you had to get on a Russian plane to go to all those cities. And then after the crash, they allowed us to take our plane everywhere. So that was a huge upgrade for us and for the other non-Russian teams to be able to use their own private plane for the duration of all the road trips. So that was a big thing for us. They said they were going to decommission that plane. I know a bunch of guys took that plane, several weeks after that. They were still flying yaks around. And so it got dicey. A lot of guys left. A lot of guys thought very long and hard about leaving. When that happened, they're like, this is too much. Like, we knew something was going to go down, and then it did. And so, yeah, some of the travel stuff did get a little bit better. But Jesus, at such a great cost that just really didn't feel like it needed to be that way. Mm-hmm. But that's what you're dealing with over there. It's not Delta Airlines.
Moving to a brighter thing, we ask everyone this question as well, and I'm curious to know if there was a difference between the two leagues. But when you first get that first NHL check, you're a professional. What do you do with it? Do you go out? Do you celebrate?
Probably a little bit. I think I bought my very first, brand new vehicle, which, I think people advise against. You don't need the nice car. But it was like a Yukon Denali. It had navigation in it, which was a huge deal back then. Mm-hmm. It was one of the first cars with navigation in it. So that's pretty much what I did. I've always been I struggle to buy a lot of things for myself. I have like a couple nice guitars and some golf clubs, and, that's about the extent of what I do. I bought the boat when I turned 40, classic midlife crisis. But it's just, I don't think I went crazy. I was, I was sending all my money home. That's what I was doing. I was keeping the allowance of what I felt I needed there to live comfortably and, entertain myself and do that kind of stuff. But the rest of the money I sent home. That's what I did.
And what about some of that cash that you couldn't exactly stash away in Russia?
Well, God, I hope the statute of limitations is passed, but there are ways to get it. Now, the last year that I played over in Russia, I was in Ukraine. And when I came back, the country was war torn. Right. So, I remember my uncle, who was my tax guy, he's like, hey, we need this document out of Ukraine for your, U.S. taxes. And I go, I don't think anyone's going to answer the phone. Like, I don't think we're getting that document. But I had a lot of money in my Ukrainian bank account. I had intentions of going back after my injury. And so I had a lot of money sitting in there. So what I did was every day I went to an ATM here in Omaha, and I would just take my debit card and go to like 9 ATMs a day and just drain it as far as the card would let me do. I did it every day for like 3 months, and then just lived out of a safe for an entire summer.
Wow.
That's how I got the money out. Because I wasn't going to be able to go back over and get it. Couldn't call the bank to wire it. Bank's probably in rubble.
And
what are you going to do?
And the fees that you had to pay on exchange were probably worth it. Or else you
don't
see that money.
Transaction?
Yeah.
Worth it.
Yeah.
So I remember I went and did that for months every day. It's like, oh, where are you going? I'm like, oh, I'm going to go clean out the ATMs of the city.
How much?
And that's how I got the money out. It's like $600 a pop. I'd go hit like 4 or 5 of them. I did for months.
Wow.
Until the card was like, you are out of funds. It's like, oh, well, rip. Guess that's it.
Wow.
And that's how I got it out.
Because I know a lot of guys, what they did is they would have, like you said, a local, and they would basically leave the money in there, get the credit card, and then use the credit card back in North America, and the money would just kind of filter out that way.
Yeah, it's you got to do it. A lot of guys flew over, a lot of friends. Like, it was worth $1,000 flight to bring your buddies over and give everybody $10,000 cash to bring back that you could declare and bring in. So a lot of people were bringing family members over to take cash home with them. Nobody wanted to come to Siberia, so I had to come up with other alternatives to get it out.
I'm so fascinated. I'm so fascinated about the Siberia thing, man. I mean, there's very few people that can say, A, they've been there, B, lived there. I mean, it's just, I can't imagine what a life-changing experience that would be.
I imagine it's like living in,
Winnipeg?
Yeah, well, I didn't want to say it.
Chicago?
I was going Alaska, right? Like, it's like,
you lived in Alaska. You played for the Alaska Aces, too, though.
I did, yeah. Shout out the Bush Company. But, yeah, you're it's cold. It's cold and it's dark. I don't know if you remember, but there was a comet that hit the Earth. It would have been in 2012 or 13. There was a comet.
You saw that go over?
Yeah.
Yeah, lit up the sky. I've never seen the video.
I heard it.
Wow.
And it landed maybe 200 miles from where I was. It landed in Chelyabinsk, which is where another team was, blew out the windows of their arena, blew out all the windows in the city, and we heard it. Wow. And I was like, this is another Forrest Gump moment where I was like calling my wife. I'm like, I think a comet just hit the earth right about where I'm at right now.
I think I'm going to go home now.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know about this. This might be enough. But yeah. So I mean, it is fascinating. It's an experience. I will say in general, the people, just the general people of the town, they're very nice. Like Russians they're not bad people. They're not scary people. They have, just like we've got the mob here in the US, it's everywhere. But, I was always treated very, very well. I was fortunate to play very well, which I think really helped my situation. There's a lot of guys that go over with the expectations and the dollars you're getting that maybe don't perform up to expectations, and they're going to have a different experience. Right. So I was fortunate enough to play very well, and I didn't have to deal with a lot of that.
Walk me through the decision after the injury to go and kind of give it one more kick at the cat playing over in the UK.
So I had a surgery, and I got cleared to play right at about maybe New Year's of that year. Far too late to go back overseas. Only 2 months left. No one in North America is going to pick you up. And at that point, sadly, I was damaged goods, and the only place that was going to give me a shot was in Italy, which is where I ended up first. So I went from playing for, I don't know, I was probably going to make over $1 million that year in the KHL. The very next year I played for $40,000 in the Italian league. And I was just like, this is not good. Like, this is the beginning of the end. I went there with the intention of just proving that I still remembered how to play the game. And then a KHL team would come calling to come bring me back, which they did. But unfortunately our team was hosting a part of the Continental Cup, which is an international tournament over there. And our owner said, well, I'm going to keep you at least through the Continental Cup, which was a couple of months into the season. And I mean, if you look at the stats that year, they were gross. I think I was like 15-0 with like a 1 goal against average. Like the hockey was bad. My backup goalie was the baker in the town. Our second line center was an investment banker, by day. These are guys with day jobs, So he said, I got you here. You're kind of a golden goose. Like, I'm not going to let you go until after this tournament we're hosting. And I said, well, these guys, they need me now. Like, this is my shot to get back. This is why I came here. And he said, I don't know what I can do. I can't do it. And so those opportunities went by the wayside. I did get picked up by a team in the Austrian league at the midpoint of that season and went there. And that's where I really decided to think about hanging it up. And I came home, didn't know what to do. Like so many of us, when you leave the game, you're lost. And that's exactly where I was. I didn't have my degree. I didn't have anything. My resume was a joke. It was just a bunch of teams I played for. So it's like, what are you going to do? And so I decided,
Stop a dumping behind the net, pulled 6 inches off the boards for the left side D-man, but that's about it.
That's about it. Those are the skills I got. I could read a hell of a breakout. So it was, I decided I was going to go back. I got a call from a guy named Ryan Finnerty. He's another Vancouver guy. And he actually played junior hockey in the town I grew up in Surrey, for the Surrey Eagles. And so he was a coach of the team in Glasgow. And he called me up and he said, hey, this league is probably maybe a little beneath you. And I said, I didn't say that. I just came from Italy. Like, what are you talking about? And he goes, but it's a good league here. There's good players. You can play golf. There's 15 Canadian guys on the team. I'm the coach of the team. He's like, you can go to St. Andrews. You can do whatever you want. And I said, you know what? It would be great to play one more season where I really enjoyed the game and enjoyed who I was playing with. Not that I didn't like my teammates, but it's a struggle. Language barriers are a struggle. Culturally, it's a struggle, right? So I wanted one more season with a good opportunity to remember hockey in a very good light. And that's why I decided to go to the UK and play one more season. I don't regret it. And
you probably fit in pretty well looking the way you do over in Scotland.
They should have picked me up for those Scottish games. I could have thrown some logs or whatever.
A caber toss.
Yeah. But I was doing music stuff there too. Like I linked up with some guys and I was doing some music stuff. And that was really starting to take off. And, I played all the good golf courses and we had a very successful season. And so I'm really thankful for that opportunity from Finner to go and do that. And I do remember the game now in a very fond way instead of the grind of, doing a mid-season exorcism or, just the shit of like, what are we doing over here? So it was worth it. And after that, I hung it up. I went into the season knowing that it was going to be the end, which I think is the way to go.
And that league's really on the up and up. And so you were kind of, one of the builders of that too.
Yeah, it is. And they've done a great job with it. And there was a lot more talent there than I gave it credit for. We had the opportunity to play in the Champions League, which is another international competition there. And so many great experiences from hitting, all the different leagues over there, pretty much playing in all these different countries. I went to the Spangler Cup. I went to I was in the Deutschland Cup. I got to wear the USA jersey twice. I got it, just everything all rolled up. It was time to be done. And I got nothing but good to look back on, for sure.
Good for you, man. Honestly, as much as I started off by saying, what happened, it sounds like it was a successful career all the way through, just for life.
I don't think you can look at it any other way. I mean, I didn't get the shot in the NHL I hoped that I was going to get. Don't blame anyone but, myself. I think I hate playing that blame game or, making excuses. There's for sure things that I could have done. But I don't regret any place that I went. Don't regret anything I did.
And look, what else are you going to do with the wall behind you? You got all that space. You got to fill them up with masks of the team you played for.
That's it. It's become a great conversation starter in the sales world. It's like, what are those whole hockey helmets up there? And I go, there's not enough beer in the town for us to get through all the stories of what I went through.
Instead, just pointing towards this podcast. All the stories are right here.
Hey, you guys are doing great. It's such an up and coming thing, and I'm really enjoying watching all the content that you guys put out. So congratulations to you guys. I mean, what a thing you guys have turned this into. And, Trav, you guys are doing a great job.
There's no way he's a Democrat. He's way too cool to be one. I was telling Dave before we started recording, I feel like you've been watching the show probably for close to a year and a half, 2 years. We've been chatting back and forth. And I know we were pretty active in November of 2024. For those that know, if you don't know, you know. And it's been nice to kind of get you on the show and kind of go full circle here with you, man. I haven't even gotten to any of my hockey questions. I know Dave mentioned. Sorry, go ahead.
No, Trav and I have ties. Like Pasco Valana is somebody that I credit my entire career to. And for those who don't know who he is, he's an incredible coach and mentor out of Vancouver. He's a goalie coach. And until I got linked up with him and the advice that he gave in those early years of going to junior and ending up at the U.S. program and going to college and getting drafted, like he was there to help guide. And I had a lot of questions, of what I should do. I didn't know what college hockey was. I didn't know what the NTDP was. I was born and raised in Vancouver. I was going to the Dub. Like that was the only road that existed.
Yeah, man. Boy, have things changed.
But oh my God, and the new rule change that's allowing those guys to come to the CHL's done.
Yeah,
you think the CHL's cooked?
College. It's crazy.
You think the CHL is cooked with the NCAA CHL rule?
Yeah, it's cooked. I really do. I think it's now a farm system to the NCAA now, especially when you have NIL. So when you can play in college till you're 25.
Exactly.
You're gonna go to the CHL. It's now the BCHL of hockey, right? It's a feeder. Mm-hmm. So you're going to go there if you're not ready to come to college and play with 25-year-olds. If you're a 16-year-old kid, it's like, oh, we'll go play for the Vancouver Giants for a while.
Right.
Then we'll call you up when we're ready. Then you got 4 more years to play in college. If you're an undrafted player, like you're going to make $100,000 a year. This is a great deal. I think it's a great thing. It strengthens I'm a little biased towards the college system, but it strengthened the hell out of that. And it's going to provide, I think it provides a good bridge, because when you were living the junior life, I mean, you're still living with a billet. You're a kid. You're really a kid. And going to college gives you the opportunity to get on your own, start to develop a budget, start to live the life of a pro. You don't play as many games, but you're definitely in an extremely professional environment, right? If you look at the coaching staffs of those teams, not that the Dub and the CHL don't have great coaching staffs, but you're just seeing this massive move towards the college direction. And I think it's great. And you have an opportunity to get an education while you're playing, and you grow up a lot. You grow up a lot very quickly. And like I said, you're by yourself and you're doing it.
I'm sure you saw it with McKenna. He got like $700,000 just for signing to Penn State. And he had 1 more year left in Medicine Hat, said, give me the cash money, see you later. Like what you just mentioned.
Yeah, well, I'm no dummy. I would have done the same thing, right? And when you go and you see these environments, like I know the CHL's got some cool environments, like I'm sure playing for London's awesome, or you're playing, but you go see some of these collegiate, you go down to Arizona State, talk about how easy it is to recruit. You go to a Penn State, you go to a Michigan, you go to Minnesota, you go to North Dakota. Just some of the best facilities I ever played in my life, better than NHL facilities.
Ever been to Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan before, or Swift Current?
No. See, unfortunately, I missed the Brandon Wheat Kings on my journey.
Hey,
but
you know what? Dave talks about the buildings that smell like old churches. The Prince Albert Raiders Arena. That's an experience. Maybe that's like a go into town, go for lunch, stop at the gift shop, and keep on driving type of deal. But it's definitely worth the experience. Maybe not 8 months of it. And we love the great people of Prince Albert.
Until you've come out of the first intermission in Kazakhstan and you see the whole arena full of cigarette smoke because everyone just lit up during the break because they're just waiting. I don't want to hear about tough arenas.
I've coached games in Pegwas, Manitoba, so I know all about that.
Here you go. So yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy with this direction. I think the move is great. I think it's going to give the kids in the CHL another opportunity to continue their career. You're definitely 99% of the guys are not pro ready at 20. And so to have another place that you can go after you've played a few years in what is a good league in the CHL, come down to college, and it's a good next step towards making pro hockey better.
I can't help but think, but all the people hacking up darts between warm-ups and the start of the game, what a sick light show with all the smoke just kind of coming up to the top.
It was like I didn't need it in the going into the third, but it was it was cool for a warm up.
Chris, do you feel the same way whenever you walk into like an old grandma's or like a grandpa's house? It just like it reeks like cigarette smoke, and they're like, I don't want to smoke myself, but I like the scent of it. Do you feel the same way?
Even if they didn't smoke, it feels like it smells like that. Like there's just like a must, that's in the air. But it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me to walk into an old cigarette house. There's definitely some nostalgia. It's just like when you walk into an old shitty like city rink and you smell the Zamboni fumes and you're like, give me all that.
The diesel.
Give me all that. I want it.
I can't help but think of when you mentioned about the CHL becoming a feeder to the NCAA, kind of foreshadowing. The smart people of Canada will go to the U.S. for economic opportunities, and the smart players will go from the CHL to the NCAA for great hockey opportunities. It's just a feeder system from north to south.
It is, and it would not surprise me. I mean, I'm another one of those statistics. I came down here, still here, right? There's going to be a lot of guys that come down to the States, play in these environments, make relationships, find wives, find girlfriends that are from those areas. They're going to stay. They're not going to go back. Well, that's my call.
And it's funny because, as a Canadian, a lot of them don't realize that the place you're in is not exactly a hockey hotbed, but it is becoming more of a hockey, petri dish, if you will.
Where, in the U.S.?
Yeah, especially like in middle America.
Yes. Nebraska Omaha is an extremely competitive team. They've done such a great job growing the game here across all the states. Of course, the people, when Wayne came down here, that was massive. You get someone like Austin Matthews from Arizona. You get guys from Texas that are making it, Florida that are making it. The game is growing. There's a lot of money down here. There's a lot of money being spent. The travel hockey, I'm sure, just the same as up there, is just getting out of control. So it's growing at a massive, massive rate, and cities are making investments into more arenas. I'm seeing it here in Nebraska. I'm seeing it all over the Midwest.
Well, I'm old enough to remember the Axar Bend Knights. And that whole, that whole debacle. We can't call it Nebraska.
Yeah, I was going to say the little known fact is Aksarben is just Nebraska backwards.
Exactly. So. What a creative way. And I still don't fully understand why they weren't able to do that. It's because there was another team that already had a deal in place. I can't remember exactly, but there was a team in the American League, the Axar-Ben Knights, for a period of time that was playing out of Nebraska but could not call themselves Nebraska.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. And it was also a part of the city is called the Aksarben part of the city. So it was maybe a little bit to do with that. But, they played out of an old horse race track. The Omaha Lancers moved in there, and that's what it was when I was going to college at Nebraska Omaha. Is they had a rink there. The junior team was playing an old, it was literally an old racetrack.
Wow.
It's obviously turned down now, but it's what they've done such a great job in the Midwest, having minor hockey team or minor pro teams move into these areas, into Des Moines, into Utah, into Vegas, into some of these places where you get some coast teams in there. It boomed. People love hockey. If you go watch one hockey game live, I'd be shocked if you're not hooked. And it's just took off in so many of these places. Now you get a team isn't there a team in Palm Springs now? Like, isn't there, come on, where was this shit when I was around?
Yeah, right.
I was in Worcester, cleaning up in the shitholes of the Northeast. I didn't get any of these fun trips. I was Peoria, Illinois. No offense to the Peoria Ice, but I mean, you're not Vegas. You're not
Rivermen, the Rivermen have got a good program.
The Rivermen, the Rivermen.
That's the only franchise or organization that's ever been in 4 pro leagues. They've been all the way from the from the UHL, ECHL, SPHL, AHL. They've done the whole circuit in Peoria.
Peoria was, to go back to one of your earlier questions, like when did you start to feel the political change in hockey and like start to think about going overseas? It was really in Peoria, where I had spent the first half of that season just crushing it. Like I think I was leading in all stats. And I got called up to St. Louis because Manny Legacy stepped on the rug after the anthem.
Oh, I remember that.
With his groin in half. I was the benefactor of that. And then, I think 2 weeks later, Chris Mason was sitting on the bench. He got hit in the face with a puck. Was out for a month. Came up for that. So I cashed some good checks on some crazy call-ups. But
were you behind Ben Bishop then? Was Bish in charge?
Yeah. So he wasn't when I was playing. Then we traded for Bish about Christmas time. And I remember coming back from St. Louis down to Peoria, and I think I was 25 games in, had like a 1.7 and like a 940 or something like that, and I was number 1 in the league. So I was like, I'm going to keep kicking ass, and I'm going to get a shot. And I didn't play for about 3 weeks. And I remember I went into the coach's office. I won't name the coach. It was one of our coaches, unbelievable stand-up guy. And I went in there, and I just said, man, like, what's going on? Like, why am I not getting – and we weren't winning. I was like, why am I not getting games? And he's like, Holtzy, I got games for you every week. Every week I get a call. I got to play Bish. And I said, this is bullshit. I got dreams too. Like I'm trying to make it. This is the year. And he's like, I don't know what you want me to do.
Wow.
So then it became the search of like, okay, where are we going to go?
So do you think that's coming from the GM in St. Louis?
Oh yeah, those are barking orders for sure. Yeah.
But was he drafted? Was he Ottawa? No, he was
Ottawa pick, and we traded for him.
And so then he comes in, and then they dished him back to Ottawa afterwards. I remember that, right?
Maybe he might have. I know he ended up in Dallas, but I played for St. Louis for a bit.
So they traded him.
Great goalie and a great kid. Not his fault. He was such a great partner to have. He was awesome. But I remember just sitting on the bench going, "What the fuck is this? This is insane."
Talented goalie, but one of the most uncoordinated goaltenders to ever play on the National Hockey Team.
You'd be surprised. And he started, like I said, he kind of was one of those early guys of when he got to the league and he was playing so well. People were like, hey, maybe we should look for guys that are like 6'8". Like maybe we should look for some of these massive goalies who are coming in. And then you started to see him everywhere.
Were you in the system at the same time as Jason Mission? Do you remember him?
No, I was there with
6'10". Ranger system. He must have been right after you because I remember.
Steve Valaket. This is another huge. He came into the Ranger system and took over the backup role there behind Hank. Huge goalie. These guys are, and he came to Russia too. He played Moscow. So like the goalie shift right when I went over to Russia started to get big again, and I was like, and then they made the gear smaller, right? And so then I was like, fuck.
Yeah, you can thank Garth Snow for that one.
And
thanks, Garth. Just did it a couple of years too late. If you made that gear small in 2005, man, I was looking good.
You must have honestly, Chris, been probably at like the only organization that would have been the worst place for a tall goaltender because I'm shooting from the hip here. Like you talk about guys like Pekka Rinne who are 6'5", Bishop coming to the system. Like how many guys? Luongo 6'4",
big.
All these
big
guys like Carey Price, I think 6'3" at the time, Fleury 6'2", yep. And to think Tom Renney, who I do want to point out, got shit canned and sent to Edmonton, and that was the end of his career. Is
he the president of Hockey Canada now?
Yeah. Well, they shit canned him after the whole situation of the last 2 years. I have no insight on that aspect of things, but
I got no ill will. I like all these guys. For the record.
But what an odd thing! You're too big.
Too big.
That was the trend.
I think at the time I was 6. I was like 6'3.5", probably like 235.
Wow.
And I was looking all right. So I was like, man, I don't know how much smaller that's what I said to him. I said, I don't know how much smaller you think I can get before it starts to look bad. Like, I don't know what you want me to do.
And now they're begging for guys like you. It's incredible.
Well, I think they're getting bigger now. I don't know if you've noticed as well, Holtzy, with the Leafs, if you're under 6'4", no thank you. Like Joseph Wall, 6'5".
Sparks.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sparks, wasn't he tall?
Sparks was 6'4", yeah, and then Stoller is 6'6", Hildeby 6'7". My boy Matt Murray 6'5". He's obviously gone from the organization, but if you look in their prospect pool, they got a Russian kid who's like 6'7". Like all these teams, if you're all of them under 6'3", we're not drafting, and then 6'4" for some of them, the same thing. But we also had Bill Ranford on the show where like they're really the Kings. the only team taking chances on guys that are in that 6', 6'1" range. So to hear you're too big just baffles me, especially in that era.
And hence we got into it a little bit, because it was just like, man, I don't know what you want me to do with it. I really don't know what you want me to do.
Yeah, but I bet you that Gibson looks pretty good on your lap at 6'3".
Well, it's good. I'm a sucker for the big guitars for sure.
What are you playing original music? I want to give you a plug here. Wait, can people find your music online?
No, yeah, we do have original music. The band's called South of Center Band. You can look us up on all platforms. We just put out a little 10-song EP or so, maybe 6 months ago, I would say.
We're putting it on the car ride home. It's going on the stereo.
Do it, yeah. It's worth it's a good listen. If you like, Southern rock, it's kind of the direction we go. But it started as just a fun hobby that I was doing with some friends, maybe 10 years ago, and cycled through a couple of members during that run. But in the last 5 years, we've really blown up to be one of the bigger bands in Nebraska in this area. So we turn down more gigs than we do, and we've opened for Chris Lane. We've opened for, some big artists that have come through Nebraska, and we don't market very well. We don't put a lot of effort in. It just, if you come catch a show, a lot of people go, holy shit. And then you just get another opportunity from that and another, we just don't say no.
Good for you, man.
It's just a crazy, it's been a crazy run.
Earthquake South of a girl's guitar is just in the good vibration. I like it.
Look, you got to do what you got to do. I'm 40. My hair is getting gray. I got to do something cool. So I heard when you're in a band, you go up a few points. So
Chris, you know what they say about big guitars?
What do they say?
Big strings.
Straps? Oh, big strings. There you go.
Big strings.
No, okay.
We haven't even gotten into in Ottawa as well. Being behind Brian Elliott and Pascal, I always get injured Leclerc. I don't know if you ever heard this story, Chris. It was the last season when Pascal Leclerc was in Ottawa. It was when he took over for Elliott in the playoffs. And his landlord at the time, because he'd gotten injured so many times, comes in to check in on Pascal. Hey, man, how you doing? Good. Throws an egg carton at him and says, what's this for? He's like, you should probably put it on. It'll stop you from getting injured.
Jesus Christ.
Wow.
His landlord, downtown Ottawa.
Wow.
Jeez Louise. Great year, though. It was the year we scored a goal. Took the most selfish shot in the hockey history, up by 1 on the power play with 30 seconds left. Took the shot.
Tell us about your goal, by the way, out of curiosity.
Yeah, that was it. I mean, I got called up. I was in bingo for a few weeks. I was there. Mike Brodeur was there. Andy Kyoto was there.
Was this the season when they abandoned everything, like the U.S. military leaving Afghanistan and just left everything? Was that the season?
It might have been, honestly. I can't even recall back that far. I feel like that was recent. This would have been like 2008, 2009, somewhere in there.
Okay.
Devils or Senators?
And, yeah, it was with the Senators. I was down bingo. Like I said, I was in there. I was playing good, and the puck comes squirting to me from center ice. We're on the power play, and they've got the goalie pulled to make it 5-on-5, and it comes down to me. I got my D. It's like 30 seconds left. I got my D just calling for it next to you. You could run out the clock. You probably just sit behind the net. We win the game. But I just, the seas just, they part. And I'm just like, fucking send it. You're going to go down anyway. Just send it. And I just ripped it. And it was right in the damn heart. I look over at I don't even know how to celebrate. I never scored a goal. So I'm just like freaking out. Come into the locker room after Coach Don Knackbauer. He comes in. And he's like, Holtzy, that was the coolest thing I've ever seen in the 40 years I've been in the business of hockey. And he goes, if you missed, you were on the first bus out of here. I'll tell you that right now. He's like, so congratulations. And it was an unbelievable moment. Just like you let it go. It's as long as it doesn't hit and take a shitty bounce. Like it was right on. I still have the stick, still have the puck.
Good for you.
Is it in the background there? Do you have it in the background somewhere?
No, it's probably in a box of memories I don't want to open, but it's in I do have it here somewhere. The stick is here and the puck is here.
Good for you, man. That's a good memory.
Yeah. Let's get into hockey questions if you got them.
I know Dave's been trying to whip me. He's like, let's keep it down to an hour. I got so many questions.
I gotta get home. I got some soup to eat. He's like, I gotta get out of here.
I got some egg soup I gotta eat, and I gotta pick up my kid from cadets in about half an hour. So let's go.
Okay, that's fair enough. I'm good. You can let me. Like I said, you got me.
What was Henrik Lundqvist and Kevin Weeks like? We'll put them together just for time efficiency, but the king of New York and one of the style icons in Kevin Weeks, what were those guys like?
Well, it's two pretty well-dressed dudes in the locker room. We had Sean Avery, too, so it's like you had a pretty well-dressed locker room, and they were all super nice. I mean, Hank was a rookie, so he was probably just as scared as I was. But Weeksy is just a long-time vet, just a great guy. The whole team was full of good guys. But Hank in particular, you see somebody like that. That's a generational talent. And you could tell right away he played different than everybody. Back then, he was super aggressive. I mean, he was out of the crease. And it took Benoit Allaire, who was the goalie coach, to really bring him back to become the goalie he ultimately was, which was someone who barely left the goal line and played so deep for the remainder of his career. Probably saved his career. But just an unbelievable guy. And I tell you, walking around with him in that city was not easy because, you felt like about the ugliest guy in the world. But I remember leaving the game, and we went across his girlfriend, who I think is his wife now. We were going across the street from the players' entrance to a bar for dinner and, have a couple drinks. And I remember her and I walked right through that crowd like butter. Like no one gave a shit. And it took him about an hour and a half to cross the street with all the women of New York trying to get pictures and autographs with, King of New York. And then just the tales go on from there.
How amazing is that to be Mrs. Lundqvist? How amazing is that to be Mrs. Lundqvist when you see Hank just getting mobbed by all these women and you're like, that is mine.
Yeah. And he was a good boy too. I mean, he was going right for her, and you learned really quickly. I'm like, man, in New York, it's tough. Like I'm sure in Toronto it's tough and Montreal it's tough, but man, when you're somebody like him in New York, you can't go anywhere. And just, we had day rooms, right? Because we'd practice out in White Plains and then we'd drive into the city at noon and go sit in a hotel room until the game. And you'd park in a parking garage and it'd already be just full of people trying to get autographs, and I'm stopping. And I asked him, I said, well, what the hell do you do? Like, this is the most autographs I've ever signed in my life. And he goes, you just keep walking. If they get you while you're walking, great. You just don't stop. You just keep going. So yeah, such a great goalie there. Manny and
did you have any
Chris
experiences with the Seekers, by the way, while you were in New York, of Seekers coming to get autographs from you?
All the time. I mean, I still get fan mail today. I've been retired for 7 years. I still get fan mail of people seeking autographs and doing all that.
Any crazy stories from the Seekers in New York?
I don't know. They pop up when you. It's like this is before you could really track people. So it's like, how do you know? Like, how do you know where we're going to be? But I don't have any. I would say wild or out of pocket stories. You get the really crazy ones over in Europe, and you see cards that you've never seen before. You see stuff like that. There's collectors at the Spangler Cup. There's a ton of Seekers at the Spangler Cup trying to get autographs from all those people. It's a good way to get a lot of talent that you don't see all the time. So they're hounding you. But no, I wouldn't say I have any crazy stories about that. But just watching some of these icons try to maneuver through all of that is you can tell the vets have learned how to do that, and the young guys are just getting held up all the time because you had Yager, you had Jason Strudwick, who I had played at that time, was a Vancouver Canuck. So I was, but I didn't know who he was. I asked him who he was, on the team. I'm like, what's your name? He goes, I'm Jason. I go, I'm Chris. How's it going? He's like, pretty good. I go, is it your first year with the team? He's like, yeah. I go, how many games you got? He goes, about 600. I'm like, oh, not bad. As much as I played, I'm a very bad fan of the game, so I'm like, Jesus, I'm never talking to anybody again. Like, that's it.
Well, you mentioned the rinks, that rink in Switzerland for the Spangler, and then MSG. They couldn't be two different rinks. One's on the 8th floor, and the other one is like more like a church of hockey. Some of the rinks that you've seen are probably legendary.
Have you guys had the chance to go over to that tournament ever?
No, not yet.
It's a bucket list thing. If you're a hockey guy, going to the Spangler Cup's a bucket list event. It is one of the coolest environments that I've ever been in. It is a church of hockey, for sure.
Yeah. As far as the Seeker stuff goes, so you're saying Hank says, just keep walking, and if they get you while you're walking, it's all good.
Yeah, if you stop, it's you'll never get out.
Right.
You just gotta keep your head down, just keep walking. You can sign while you're walking, but if you don't get him on the way to where he's going, you're not gonna get him.
Any other tips?
It's the way it has to be.
Any other secrets of the pros when it comes to that?
Well, like I said, learn who you can play with. Jesus Christ. Understand who's on your team and what they've done. That's a good tip for somebody who doesn't follow hockey particularly well.
Or what about Weeksy? What was he like?
Oh, I'll tell you what. Here's a good secret. Here's a good tip for the pros. When you're a goalie who gets called up to the NHL for the first time and you're in warm-up, don't get off the ice till the last guy gets off the ice. Because I did my first warm-up at MSG I was obviously not starting, but you go through that kind of half moon shooting at the end, you go through last puck, and you think you're done, like guys are getting off the ice, guys are getting final shots in and whatever. And so I'm like, okay, there's like 5 or 6 guys left. Like I'm going to get off. And I got to the locker room and Michael Nylander comes and grabs me by the jersey, pulls me out into the hallway. He's like, if you ever get off again while I'm still out there, he's like, you're done. You'll never come back here. Like you're done. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, I like to do 3 breakaways at the end of the warm up. That's what I like to do. I'm like, dude, I don't know. I've been a pro for 3 games. Like what are you talking about right now? He's just giving it to me in the hallway. And then I came in. And then later he's like, dude, I'm sorry for coming down on you like that. I just get a little intense on game day. He's Swedish. Just ripped into me after that first warm up out there. He goes, you don't ever get on fucking ice ever.
Wow.
You're the last guy. I'm like, dude, fucking relax. Warm up. He likes to do what he likes to do. So so the rest of the year I took his 3 breakaways, To be fair, he was good in the shootout. So
Was that him? No, that was Marek Malik who did the between the legs on Ole Kolzig.
I was on the bench for that game. Yeah. In Forrest Gump moment, standing on the bench, like 16th round. And he's sitting next to me. He's sitting right here. And I'm at the very end. And, Rennie's looking down the bench. He's like, I already sent like Ortmeyer and I sent, Strutty just went and scored. Like all these guys are going down. And he goes to Malik. He's like, hey, I think they call him Lurch. And he's like, hey, Lurch, like, you're up. And I look over him. I go, what are you going to do? He's like, watch this. And he goes out and he puts it between his legs and scores.
Man, the jersey,
jump on the ice.
that was the Liberty Head jersey, the hand up in the air.
Yep.
Iconic moment.
That's a beautiful jersey.
If you look at the video, you'll see me in my nice white Vons making my way into the pile.
Dude, you had great style too. You had that V2 blocker and glove. You had the original knee slots before Carey Price did, and I think that was a V2. I want to go like 7200 set of pads.
They were V2s. Ooh, yeah, they were good. I loved them. I wore them all the way up until I got a deal. I think I went to Bauer for 2 years when I got to Russia, and then I got a deal with Reebok after the All-Star game in Russia to wear Reebok. Mm-hmm. And so that's when that started. But man, I love that Bauer gear. It just broke down. I was a big guy, so it got soft real quick. And once they started coming out with those like one piece, like those Reebok, I can't remember the name of them, but they were kind of like Luongo warm. They were just kind of like one smooth piece, all the way up with no knee breaks. And I was like, ooh, I want to get into some of those.
Premier Series, yeah. Isn't it crazy to think 20 years ago knee rolls were a thing and they had to have them to maintain the integrity of the pads and just how much they changed?
And now you don't see them, other than like throwback gear or whatever.
Or even the one-piece gloves. Like everything was a two-piece and now everything's a one-piece.
Yep. I actually had the Bauer guys make the Vaughn glove in a Bauer, Bauer print. So I sent them a Vaughn glove that I really liked. Felt like it closed like a baseball glove, and that's what I wanted. All these gloves close like weird now. They kind of got this weird hook in them, and I was like, how do you guys catch anything? Now goalies, I don't think goalies have the hands anymore. I think the rebound control and the puck handling and the hands. I watch games now and I see so many shitty rebounds, and I'm just like, man, do you guys even work on this anymore? Or do y'all just work on your little sliding around the crease and the RVH all the time? Like, is that all you guys do now?
Chris, I think we're showing our age talking about this.
I know, we are. I had the regular VH. That was a cool move back then.
Back in my day, we did the VH. We caught pucks with our glove. Did you ever have the Kipper Spec glove? You remember that one?
I don't think I had that was what Kippersoft wore?
Well, so Kippersoft's idea was, because obviously like the Finns, they're very big on the baseball side of things. And Kipper's idea with his glove was he thought that there wasn't enough real estate. He wanted as much real estate in the glove as possible. So he told the guys at Vaughn, flatten it like a pancake, make the tee as shallow as possible, make the glove as flat as possible so I could use it. And I can and he would like cradle pucks kind of like Lundqvist. And that's where the Kipper spec came from. And if you look, it's flat as a pancake, that glove. Yeah,
I don't know where it happened, but I remember I used to do this drill where I would get about 50 pucks and I'd get them maybe top of the circles, and I'd just sit there on my knees or whatever, just have guys rifle them at my glove. I'd have to catch it and put it in the bucket. And if I either bobbled it or missed the bucket, I would dump the bucket out and start again. And so after a while, like if you put it anywhere near my glove, like the play's over. Like that's done now. We're just going to catch it. And I just don't know. I watch goalies now and they can move incredibly well. Like their footwork and everything is so elite, but I just see bad, just dropping routine pucks all the time. Long shots to the blocker that just get punched right into the middle, pucks off the legs into the middle. I'm just like, where's all the rebound control? Where did all that go? And I just don't know if there's so much of an emphasis on it anymore versus an emphasis on recovery. It's like, well, if you don't give up a shit rebound, then you didn't have to recover. So it's like, this is where it was. You know, I made a living on not having to make secondary saves. Well, that was my whole thing.
This might actually lend to something that we talked about on an episode not too long ago, how scoring is up in the NHL and save percentages are down, and you might have just absolutely nailed it.
I really think it is. Like I don't know what else it really could be. I mean, I understand skills are high and skills are great. I was just talking to one of my best friends who's a scout in the NHL, and I said, when you watch these guys, does it look like there's like less hockey sense out there and just like a lot of skills? He goes, we call those hockey camp kids. Like these are all hockey camp guys at the NHL level now. The million toe drags and spinoramas and all this stuff. No one knows where to go on a breakout. No one knows where. Like there's just so much of the game when we were playing that I find is gone now, and it's gone by the wayside. They've traded it for skill. But I wish I guarantee you, if there's a goalie that ever came back into the league where you're just like, he is a sponge, like this guy is elite. You know, I think that guy's going to kill it, because all I'm seeing right now is just a lot of great footwork and amazing skating by these goalies and horrible routine saves. Horrible.
If I could play devil's avocado to myself and you, Chris,
please.
I have a good friend of mine who plays at a fairly high level. He knows who he is. I know he's going to text me and he's going to say the game has never been faster. There's not enough time to react. And on a bounce of probability, the footwork and the agility have increased to compensate for right place, right time, and just get hit with the pucks, which is why there's a lot of big guys, but also why a lot of big guys are breaking down, because the game is so fast. The gear is reduced in size and it's more harder on the joints and on the limbs. And he would probably say, we're just trying to play the percentages because the game is getting so quick. And the stats would reflect that.
I can't disagree. I can't disagree with any of that either. That's a great take. You know, the skill and the speed is great. There's maybe less, but maybe a bigger strategy when we were there was putting pucks on net. Let's just get pucks on net. Like, let's take shitty shots and hope for rebounds. And so you were making a rebound control a huge priority, because you were going to see a lot of shots from all these different angles that maybe you don't see them anymore. The puck possession is increased for sure. Guys are holding onto the puck longer. Possession time in zone is probably getting longer.
Well, that's one thing that we touched on, is that it's all stats driven. Where are most of the goals coming from on this goalie? And you set up your game plan to shoot from that area more often than not.
Shoot from there, and you know, it was a much, I don't know, big lug type game, the North American game back there, where it was put pucks on net and just bang shit home. And now you got guys that are like, the backdoor plays that I see are so cool to watch. Things that I didn't have to worry about so much, you know, that wasn't part of what was going until I got overseas and that became more prevalent. I think the North American game is lending its way towards what that was a more possession game. You look at how overtime has changed and how possession is so key. And these guys know how to play that way, right? They're not giving pucks away. The cycle game is insane now. But back in the day, man, guys were getting in the zone. If you're on a 3-on-2, you're getting in the zone. It's like, get a puck to the net and crash a net. I'm like, well, there ain't gonna be nothing there when you get there. But this is a different era. So I can't even debate against what your buddy would say, Trav. It's like, he's probably not wrong, and it is fast as hell. And that probably lends to different situations and making different reads that we didn't have to make.
To be fair, he does have more NHL games played than you and I collectively together, so I think there might be a little bit more weight in what he says than what both of us have to say. But you know,
we'll take it.
It's okay to spitball ideas. I will say we are 100% showing our age here, Holtzy.
Yeah, different eras.
This has been fun. There's so many good stories.
Yeah,
so much action.
And
good to get to know you too, and on a personal man-to-man level, Chris.
And I'm going to take you. I'm going to take you up on that boat ride and golf game.
Guys, I'm there, and I got reason to be in Winnipeg. So when I come up, I'm gonna let you guys know. We'll get out there.
What is your reason? Is it to avoid the Winnipeg handshake?
So I sell robots now. These are like welding robots that weld pipe. These massive monstrosities. But there's a couple of companies in Winnipeg that have bought them. And so I've got reasons to go up and visit and say hi to those guys and, do the old sales guy and kiss babies. But when I do ultimately make it up there, I'll definitely look you guys up.
I got a cold beer waiting for
when
you.
we're in Vancouver,
Yeah, I got a cold beer waiting for you in Winnipeg. I promise you that.
There you go. And then, Trav, I'll see you in Vancouver sometime.
We'll get you in this studio, right in this chair right in front of me, right across from us. We get an interview in studio. I also think you're lying. Nobody invests capital in Canada, but we can talk about that in the show. And
it's tough. I'll be honest. I've got way fewer robots up there than I do down here. So it's,
Can't imagine why. Can't imagine why.
We'll see.
Anyway.
We'll see how it goes. Bold strategy up there. But,
we'll move Cotton.
See how it plays out, Cotton.
Let's see how it pans out for him.
Take him out, Trav.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to this episode, watching this episode with Rangers, KHL, Continental Hockey, UK legend, the pride of Vancouver, Chris Holt. My name is Travis Ridgen. That is Dave Wheeler. This is Sling the Biscuit. We do new episodes every single Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 in the prairies, 9 in the foothills of Calgary, and 8 a.m. on the Pacific Northwest. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button for more shows just like this. Like button if you enjoyed it. Leave a comment. We will converse with you down there. And we will see you next Sunday. Thanks for watching.